Welcome back to Walking the London Road. 2 goals beyond the 45-minute mark in each half give Oxford United a 2-2 draw against Gary Rowett's former side Millwall, which means Oxford United are still unbeaten against the side from the Den. So, there's some positives. Will is joining us this week, and we're going to be talking, of course, the lineup, the frankly awful overall performance, and a certain Polish wide man, because there's been a bit of disagreement in our Walking on the Road group chat about kind of his performance and other bits and pieces. Will, were you at the game this weekend? How are we feeling about the point?
It's just, I mean, it was such a frustrating watch. But I think we said it last week. I think we're already at that point in the season where we just don't care about the performances. We just want points on the board. And
Mm.
to get to win a point, especially in the last minute against a team that was third in the league, like, I'll take that. No matter how much of a dire watch it was, I'll take it at this point. I'll just sort of like forget the performance, point on the board, move on to Stoke City on Tuesday. Honestly, that's my
Mm.
thinking. But
Yeah.
it was an awful watch.
Shocking. I said to
Yeah.
the people around us, we were kind of all saying, we were half an hour in, saying it's the longest game of our lives,
Yeah.
long day ahead, all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it was terrible, absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
I do sort of stand by those remarks we made last week in regard to, the points on the board is what's the most important thing, but in the moment,
Yeah.
Christ, the performance is more important because it's just, if you're
Yeah.
watching some
Yeah.
absolutely diabolical football, you know, I'm not surprised the amount of people that left. I wouldn't have done it
Yeah.
myself,
I mean,
but the amount of people that left well before the full time whistle was
it's sort
unsurprising.
of like what, yeah. Once you sort of get to a point where it's like sort of becoming reminiscent of non-league football and non-league defending,
Mm,
it's a chore to sit through. But like you, I never leave early, so I have to back them to the final whistle and just hope that something comes of it. And obviously, something came of it this week, so it was worth it. But go again Tuesday night, and we can all look forward to that, I suppose.
mm.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at this lineup because there were a couple of changes made by Gary Rowett to the side that obviously got the 3 points at Hillsborough. Jamie Cummings starting in goal, Sam Long replacing the injured Brody Spencer. According to Jerome Sale on the dub, Brody has actually split his foot open, or I think his big toe to be more specific, which is obviously a very nasty little knock. So we think he's going to be out until set to come back after the international break. So, like I said, Sam Long started right back. Middle two of Mikhail Helik and Kieran Brown, of course. Jack Curry at left back. Cameron Brannigan, Will Volks, and Brian de Kersmacher making that three in midfield. Of course, Volks the deeper of those three, with Philip Krasev on the left hand side, Stan Mills on the right, and Will Lancashire up top. Um, Good lineup. I have to say, I was a little disappointed for Nick Prelic. I thought that the Sheffield Wednesday performance, I thought he'd done enough to keep his place, but overall, one of our stronger lines we could put out, I think, Will.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no complaints with this lineup. I saw it and I thought that's brilliant. Sort of four at the back, a change to five at the back, which he played against Wednesday. Like you said, I also thought it was a bit harsh on Prelec, but like it's always nice to see Stan Mills get a chance because we just know how good he is. I
Mm.
think for me, the thing that jumped out to me most about this lineup wasn't who was in the squad, but who wasn't in the squad, which is Tyler Goodwin. And I
Yeah.
know it's sort of become a running theme this season, but especially since Gary Rowett sort of hinted, or at least he said in an interview, that we can expect to see him return. So to see him gone again, I know it's sort of been the norm this season, but it's like it's really starting to ask questions about like what has gone on behind the scenes. Why isn't he making any appearances for us? But to be honest, I had no complaints about the performance. I thought it was a solid lineup, a very strong lineup. Um, why? I mean, Gary Rowett confuses me sometimes. Why he wants to play five at the back against Sheffield Wednesday, who are quite literally in the negatives right now, and
Mm.
then plays four at the back against third in the league. I will never understand, but you get some results. It was a good lineup, and I was yeah, I had no complaints with it, to be honest.
Mm. Yeah, the Goodrum thing is interesting. Sam was asked about route when it came to Louis Sibley. That yeah, it's just the nature of 25-man squad. Um, you can, there are always going to be those that miss out on the matchday squads from the those we've got registered. So it's just this kind of common theme that it is seems to be Sibley, Goodrum, some of the players that are kind of for the moment skip my mind. Vest, obviously, I maybe thought would come back in, but I believe he's got a little bit of a knock. Romane was at the game, as were our Eric Tahir, our majority shareholder, but Ole potentially, from what I've been told, has picked up a little bit of a setback after his outings with the Indonesian national team, and we know Raut wasn't particularly happy with that. So yeah, from what I've heard, there's a little bit of time for Romney to kind of get back to full fitness, which is when Raut will want to deploy him. Right, let's have a look at this bloody stat pack, shall we? Because this is absolutely diabolical. Actually, we'll start with the momentum chart because let's get rid of Jack Curran. This is diabolical. This is shocking. Large periods. This is probably, thinking about it, the worst momentum chart we've had of the season when it comes to performance at the Castad. Away from home, obviously, we've seen this a couple of times, but there's so many periods where Millwall were so content on the ball, making some really good attacking ventures forward, and it was either last-ditch challenges by Kieran Brown or Hellick, or claiming the ball into the box. It is all that stopped them getting even more onto that score sheet. But this kind of tells the tale of how poor a performance it really was, doesn't it?
You sort of get an idea of what the game was like just by looking at that. I will say one thing is, considering the fact that we're in the position that we're in, and Millwall are obviously so high up the table, is this sort of what we'd expect it to look like? And I guess that sort of harks back to what I said last week about maybe our fans being a little bit too sort of expecting, or expecting a little bit too much from the team this year. But that can't take away from the fact that we were just awful, and you can see that plain as day there. Like you said, last ditch tackles. The defending was diabolical. I think for the 2 goals we conceded, I know we'll get onto that.
Yeah.
Mistakes all around, loose balls. Millwall were really up for it. You can definitely see why they're so high on the table, because every loose ball, every mistake, they pounced on, and they punished us twice for it.
They're pressure.
But it was exactly. Yeah, but it was such an awful watch, and you could see it very clearly in that graph what it was like to be an Oxford United fan on Saturday.
Let's talk about the opening goal then. Tiona Ballo getting his first goal for Millwall, and we're undone by one of our own tricks. The long throw into the area, and it's allowed to bounce, and it's shocking defending by Oxford United, and Ballo was able to get his head on it to fire Millwall into the lead, and it's so disappointing. You would have thought, given how often we use the long throw, we'd know how to defend the bloody things.
Yeah, I mean, if the guy who scored it was 6'5", I'd be a little bit more understanding. But he isn't even that tall. I forgot to check how tall he was before this actually, but just with my eyes, he isn't even that tall. Like I said, I said this earlier. Non-league football, it's exactly the kind of goal I expect to see at Banbury United, not Oxford United. It's sort of like you saw that go in, and you just knew the kind of afternoon you were sort of headed for. And we're lucky. I suppose we're lucky it didn't get any worse from there. But yeah, I can't really add anything more to what you said. It was just diabolical defending. Jamie Cummings should have done better. The whole defence should have done better. How we let it just bounce into our box, I'll never know. But yeah, an awful goal to concede, and it's sort of like just told of the afternoon that we were going to be in for, basically.
It becomes a common theme that the goal comes from defenders not picking up their men. Ballo has got a relatively decent amount of space in the area to latch onto it, and yeah, it's shockingly bad. On the screen, folks, you can see the stat pack is just crushingly crap. One of the main stats I look at, just to kind of, because I feel it's a good gauge of how your team performed is your pass completion rate, because it shows how competent you were and trying to take those opportunities, and looking to create looking to create in the attacking third, and playing out from the back, and dealing with pressure. And 64% completion rate is shocking. Obviously, Millwall's isn't much better at 68%, but even then, like the you know, I always think if you've got a pass completion rate in the below 70, then your side has not covered themselves in glory when it comes to their style of play, because obviously part of it comes down to the goalkeeper distribution. Jamie Cumming, we know, um, when it comes to his long distribution, is far from his strong suit. But De Kersmacher was off it, Brannigan was off it, Curry, Lee when he came on, Brown, every player, they were so lackluster in their control of the ball in the game yesterday.
Yeah, individual mistakes. Like I said, Millwall just pouncing on them. They won every loose ball. They won every missed pass they were onto. I mean, a pass completion rate that low, you wouldn't accept it in League Two, let alone the Championship.
No.
And like, it just didn't seem like there was any cohesion between the players. Um, I don't know. It's almost like everyone had the flu on Saturday. I can't work it out why everybody was so bad. Because like, I mean, tactically we weren't great, but like, there's nothing that can explain why every player was so off the mark. I mean, you mentioned a couple of players there. Will Vauxhall as well. He wasn't on it
Yeah.
yesterday at all. He was a shadow of himself. Lancashire as well. Um, yeah, it just I can't quite get it. So many individually poor performances.
Mm.
Usually, okay, every week you always get the one player who doesn't show up, or the two players who don't show up, like, but half the squad not turning up. Like, what's going on there? You'd expect when you're playing a team that's third in the league and you're at the Castad and the crowd's getting behind you, you'd be on it. But they were just so off it. They were so off it yesterday, and that's reflected in the statistics, obviously.
I'm willing to give Lancashire a little bit of benefit of the doubt. As we saw at other points in a campaign, especially the Sheffield United game, when he's up against experienced centre halves, they know how to play a young, inexperienced striker like a fiddle,
Hmm.
frustrating him, forcing him to make silly fouls. Yeah, you got to give credit to Jake Cooper on his 400th Millwall appearance
Hmm.
for
Absolutely.
how he dealt with Will Lancashire. Um,
Yeah.
Gone.
No, sorry, no, I was just agreeing with the point. I have nothing more to add.
Mm,
Sorry, carry on.
I think if I think the one that kind of stands out for me is kind of just how off at the boys were was Brian de Kersmacher. We've seen, even in games where we have been truly diabolical, the composure he brings, um, the elegance he's got on the ball when he's driving forward, and he didn't have that. He was, a fair few misplaced passes from Brian de Kersmacher. Yeah, I think that is he's becoming almost the canary in the coal mine
Yeah.
for a poor Oxford United performance, like Brannigan was previously. You know,
Mm.
if if Brannigan's off it, then the rest of the side are usually off it. It's becoming that with De Kersmacher. Also, should mention that Krastev Krastev had a really interesting game, I think, because he was getting double, maybe tripled up on the left hand side, but the way it's what we expected from Philip Krastev when he came in, what we were seeing from highlight packages and all that kind of stuff. He was brilliantly bringing the ball out of those 2, 3, 4-on-1 situations. Um, and the rest of the squad let him down because no one was coming to provide support. At the same time, there were occasions where he himself was letting the side down by almost like a Sariki Dembele situation where he does really well to get past the Millwall players pressing him, and then tries to do a little bit too much again, almost trying to win the game himself. But it was a really interesting one. I want to see Philip Krastev in playing as the 10, because I think it's such an interesting option that he gives us. But at the same time, also on that left hand side, we've seen already what this lad can bring.
I think the word for yesterday is just frustration, and everything about the performance, everything about every individual player's performance was frustrating, including Philip Krestev. Because even like you said, even those bright sparks he would have when he'd be able to sort of skip past players, there'll be no distribution afterwards because the team let him down, and then he let himself down by taking too many touches, and then everyone else would let the whole the whole fan base down by missed passes, mistakes, balls going nowhere. Just poor decision made on the ball. It's like every decision every Oxford player made, you saw like your head in your hands, like why has he done that?
Yeah,
Why has he done that? Why can't he make that pass? Why can't he make that long ball? Why is nobody up there supporting him? Um, yeah, like so he had so you're right in the sense that he had an interesting game. Also, Philip Kessler is interesting. Like I always like to see him in the starting lineup. He's a player who I really want to succeed. It's not that I don't want the other players to succeed, but for some reason, Kessler, I really want him to do well at this football club. So it's frustrating to see him not get sort of the support, at least yesterday, that he should have got. Um, but I guess the one positive you can take from it is that there were definitely bright sparks. And I think Gary Rowett can definitely work with that, sort of work him into more of his attacking strategy, because there is definitely something there to work with.
Mm. Um, I guess we've got to talk about our goal in the first half, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah,
We left it late. Christ, we did, didn't we? Um, there was a period of that latter stage of that half, as we saw in the momentum chart, where we're starting to build into the game really well. De Kersmacher has a decent effort that's saved by former Oxford Academy graduate Max Crocombe, who I thought had a pretty decent game for Millwall, and I'm glad he got a decent reception from the East End because we always like to see one of our own succeeding, even if it's not in a yellow shirt. And there was a decent effort from I think it was I think Mills and Brannigan had two decent efforts before they combined. And speaking of that goal, um, an unbelievable run from Stan Mills, lays it off, and without taking a touch, Cameron Brannigan. It's a beautiful curling effort, bends it right into the top corner off the crossbar. What a goal! East End goes bananas. Um, and yeah, on his 340th Oxford United appearance, Brannigan scores an absolute screamer as per usual.
I don't want to be really grumpy, but just for 30 seconds, he did score a banger, but it doesn't change the fact that he was awful, like the rest of the squad
Yeah,
throughout the first half and for most of the second half. But that aside, it was a brilliant goal. I mean, he only scores bangers. I think we know this by now. I think it's quite fitting that last week we were talking about, when does Brannigan get a statue? Because like when it matters, when we need a goal, when we need someone to just dig us out of like the hole that we've like put ourselves in, like he will be there for us. And it was a fantastic goal, like you said. The East End went bananas. Um, it's also good. It's obviously. I mean, there's always a good time to score, but like just before the second half is a brilliant time to score. You can go in, you've got
mm,
something to defend. The crowd get on their feet, go out with a bit of momentum in the second half, which we didn't do, but I know we're going to get onto that. But yeah, it was just a fantastic goal. But we did
it's
leave it very, very late.
it's like I said, it's typical Brannigan. I mean, I said to the people I was sat around that at half time we didn't deserve that goal given how poor we were. But like you say, it's almost similar to the Cardiff game where we scored that absolute belter as well. Game where we don't deserve it. Brannigan goes sod it. I'm going to drag this side with me. Even though, like you say, his overall performance wasn't the best. Um, so obviously in half time, and I think we're all with uh, the mindset of we got off very very lucky there, and you know will do well to stay in this game given the performances that Millwall putting in. So come out for the second half, and 15 minutes in, Jack Curry is clattered in a channel. I can't remember who it was with, but he has to be taken off and replaced by Greg Lee. And 4 minutes later, we are down 2-1. Um, the maddest part about this is that I think it's from a corner kick, and the initial effort for Millwall, which is parried by Jamie Cumming, comes from Crammer, their other centre half. It's a decent effort at Jamie Cumming, who parries it, and neither Kieran Brown or Greg Lee is tracking Jake Cooper to tap it home. I was looking across hoping for the flag to go up, but watching the replay back, he's well onside. It's really poor defending from an Oxford United perspective, and yeah, I thought this was, gonna tell the tale for the rest of the second half of just how we look second best. Millwall's press was still unbelievable, and a real lack of concentration. A lot of players ball watching in important moments, I thought.
Yeah, we're going to sound like a broken record during this episode because it's more of the same. A mistake by Oxford player, this time Vaux, pounced on by a Millwall player.
Mm-hmm.
A great effort to be fair. And then defenders not doing their job, ball watching. A goalkeeper who probably could he have done more? Could he have parried it elsewhere? Could he have parried it further away?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think it's harsh to blame Jamie Cumming in that situation.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's frustration. Again, it's the word. It's the go-to word this week. Frustrating goal to concede,
Mm.
and just sort of one where you just think like with the afternoon that we're having, like, of course that's going to happen. Of course our defenders aren't going to be tracking him. Of course our goalkeeper is going to parry it right into his path. Of course Will Vaught's going to lose the ball and like sort of have his moment where he's like dejected, where he doesn't go chasing after it. The initial shot in again, nobody really challenging him for it. Yeah, I think it was a goal that was like sort of summed up and sort of represented the whole afternoon for Oxford, basically, in terms of individual performances, individual mistakes. Millwall being more on it than we were, and just being second best, pretty much.
Yeah. And that didn't stop the Millwall pressure. They had a lot of really decent opportunities in that second half. I think Ivanovic had an absolutely golden opportunity. I think it was in the 75th minute maybe to give them a 3-1 lead. Our
Is that the
defence
one
pass
where
on the right.
the
Go on.
wait? Sorry, is that the one where I think it was a pass from one of our centre backs, it might be Brown. Our player obviously doesn't get to it, and Millwall just pounce on him and then go on the counter attack. Is that the one you're on about? Because again,
Um,
it's just those examples where it's just our own players making it 10 times harder for themselves.
yeah, I'm just looking on the. So there was an effort from Lennon in the 85th minute, but I think so it wasn't Ivanovic. Um, it was Ballo,
Mm.
who had a really decent effort that, given the afternoon he was having, you would expect him to put on target. But letting them in so easily, we look shocking. Really, I've said it a couple of times, but I think we're really, really lucky to get a point in this game, and we get that point through. It's almost like they did they listened to the last couple of weeks of the podcast and gone, let's prove the Walking on the Road boys wrong, because substitutions are made, of course, by Gary Rowett. Stan Mills and Will Vaux are replaced by Shemi Placheta and Stan Mills. Sorry, Siriki Dembele and Shemi Placheta, I should say. And in I know Millwall fans are complaining, but that's what happens when your players time wasting. The ref has got well within their right to add that extra time, and it's called a minimum of 5 minutes for a reason, but it's just so perfect that
Yeah,
because I think it comes from is it from a free kick that the goal and the initial phase of play comes.
it is.
Um,
And that free kick from Brannigan, I thought that was heading in. I
it's
thought that was heading in, but yeah,
it's a decent
no.
save from Max Crocombe. It's cleared by Millwall to the halfway line. We really well work it back in. Brannigan gets it on the ground. Siriki Dembele fires it across to Shemi Placheta, who drives it low and hard into the corner past Max Crocombe. And in the 96th minute, Oxford United get our equaliser. absolute bedlam all around the stadium. You can see on, I think it's the ITV highlights show last night, that they've got a shot, and the East Stand there's a fair number of people that have already left by that point, and yeah, I know it was just absolute mania in the East Stand. Um, Look, we'll talk about it in a minute about Placheta's overall performance, because I don't think that this goal completely um, like I don't think it takes away from the criticism that I had of him throughout that his short cameo, and I mean through a lot of his performances this campaign really. But credit to Shemi for having the composure in that moment when the pressure's on, to take the ball and strike it so low and hard past Max Crocombe to get his level.
I mean, I'll make 2 points here. First of all, what you're talking about Millwall sort of not really taking all the chances that I had. Ironically, that is what was giving me the most hope, because I sort of got a sense of maybe this just isn't their day. Maybe it'll be our day. We got lucky in the first half. Maybe we'll get lucky in the second
Mm.
half, and obviously we did. As for Placheta and his goal, I mean, Placheta, what a player! I've never had a bad word to say about him. Brilliant. I would like to say I did call it on when he made the substitution. I said Placheta rocket incoming.
You did.
And I was very, very happy with that prediction. Very happy that came true. Yeah, I think it's. I know we're going to talk about his wider performance, but I it's what he does. He comes on, he frustrates everyone. He frustrates the opposition. He frustrates
Mm.
our own team, and he frustrates everybody in the stadium, including Oxford fans. But then he'll pull out a banger like that, and I. So he has got something about him clearly.
Mm.
Um, I can't really think of much else to say other than that. That is pretty much what he does. He's so frustrating, but then, like at Bristol and like yesterday, he would just pull something out of the hat, and we'll all forgive him for a short while.
Mm.
Um,
Um, I, I will say that there's a couple of points I want to make. First of all, that again, like it's almost like Gary out watched the last couple of podcasts and went, "I'll show you," because Shemi was brought on and played on the left hand side and struggled. He was, Leonard dealt with him really, really well for Millwall at right back. And then obviously Sariki comes on. I'm saying to the guy behind me, oh, for fuck's sake, not again. I'm sick of them playing on their weak foot. But Sariki's pass comes on it on his right foot, playing inside. Um, and, just my luck in it. But generally, it's interesting because Shemi, like I say, I didn't think he had a good game at all until the goal. Um, he was struggling, he was trying to do too much again, running into cul-de-sacs. It's like you've already said. Well, he is one of the most frustrating players in the division because he can pull out stuff like that. He can pull out those kind of moments. Um, he's I'm not going to deny his work ethic, because I was watching him do his cool down after the game and he was running his backside off. And, really, really, working with the ball, working with the coaches. He's a player with a really big work ethic. It's just that sometimes we don't see that. And I think that was his 100th championship appearance. So to mark it with a goal was quite fitting. But like I say, it doesn't completely um, make up for how frustrating a footballer he can be for Oxford United.
yeah, I mean, I think also one thing I like to say about Dembele is that like when he came on, we were all like, oh, here we go. He's going to be dancing around the normal players, but not really doing much. But he did win us that free kick, which I think is one of his strengths. He's very tricky. He can win sort of set pieces in very strategic areas, and it sort of came to fruition yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with Placheta, he is just very frustrating. But if he can pull out a banger every few games, I'll forgive him. I think it sort of goes into that sort of wider point that we've made, that we almost like we care about performances, but like at this point we just want points on the board. And it's the same thing with Placheta. I care about his performance. I care about actually enjoying watching my football players play well. If he doesn't play well, if he plays really frustratingly, but if he can do that every once in a while, I'll forgive him and I'll sort of just wince through it. But yeah, it doesn't take away from the fact that his performance on Saturday was sort of more of the same from what we saw of him. I will say one thing though is that usually his poor performances sort of stand out, especially when we like get decent results because the rest of the team perform quite well.
Yeah.
Obviously, yesterday the rest of the team did not perform quite well, so I think that's why he's sort of gone under the radar and why everyone is only focusing on his moment of magic. But he got us a goal. It's another goal for him against Millwall. He got us a point. Everyone went mental. If that's a price, if the price we have to pay is watching a very frustrating performance for like a couple of really really good goals every now and again, honestly, I'll pay it. Like it's reached that point of the season on the 2nd of November, which is always a good sign. But yeah,
I mean, it's interesting because I was just thinking there about like what have been Shemi's best performances in Oxford shirt, and the two games that come to mind are Plymouth, Plymouth and Cardiff, obviously at the Castad, in that kind of winter period where he was absolutely phenomenal. I think those are the two games where he scored those absolute rockets, weren't they? And also Millwall away on New Year's. I thought it was sensational. Obviously, gets the assist for Ruben Rodriguez's header. Was absolutely terrorising Millwall's left back that day. So he has got form for standout moments and good performances against Millwall. I think you're right in terms of because the rest of the squad, you know, their performances yesterday weren't up to snuff. That this he does get away with it a little bit. And I'll just say, you know, I'd love to be proven wrong about Shemi. Last season I was giving him so much leeway. You can go back and watch the podcasts. I was a pretty defender of Shemi Placheta because I could see his raw pace, his raw talent, and I'd love him to go on a span of games where even if he's not getting goal contributions, he's putting in good, decent performances. If we're getting results, obviously the results are the most important thing, but if he's putting in good performances regardless of the games, I will absolutely get back on the Shane Placheta fan bus. I'll be back to being one of his defenders. But it's just the run of performances I think he's had up until this point. I think Shemi knows, he's been in the game long enough that he knows when he's underperformed. He knows when he's not played up to the quality that he can do. So hopefully from here, Shemi can continue to can pick up his performances and get back to the levels we have seen him in Oxford shirt.
yeah. I think also he can count himself lucky that he has the ability to just pull an absolute worldie out of the hat every few games.
Yeah.
Because if he didn't, I think he'd sort of be held in the same regard as Matt Phillips is or was. Remember when Matt Phillips had his run of diabolical performances to the point where people were booing him when he was being substituted on? I feel like if Placheta didn't have the goals that he has, or didn't score the goals that he scored for us, then I think he'd sort of be held like in the same regard as that. But you're right, he definitely does have bright sparks about him. And he can like pull out like an amazing performance, and he has brilliant attributes. He has his pace. He has like his passion. Like I seem to remember, I think it was Cardiff away last year. Like he was scrapping with the players at one point, and I think Gary Rowett had to bring him off. So he's clearly got like the passion and
because he should have been sent off
the
for
drive within
almost taking Perry and G's leg off.
Yeah, like I don't mind seeing that every now and again from an Oxford player. So he's clearly got something about him. It's like the decisions that he makes. The chances that he doesn't put in, the balls that he doesn't make, like the passes at the crucial moments that he seems to make a lot of the time he seems to make the wrong decision. But that's something he can learn. But at least we know that he's got sort of those raw abilities within him. He can score a banger. He's got the pace. He's got strength, and he's sort of got the drive within him. So definitely cause for optimism. I think that there is something there. just a couple of things need to be improved, basically.
I was going to say there's also that the Coventry game beginning last season where he
Oh yeah,
swung an
yeah,
elbow at Van Eyck and was very lucky it didn't connect, because if not,
yeah,
that's minimum a 3 match
yeah.
ban. Probably
Yeah,
he
shame
probably
it
would have
didn't
got
connect.
into it, maybe a 5 for violent conduct. He just swung for no reason whatsoever. Van Eyck had him in his pocket and he just tried to clat him with an elbow. I was just thinking, and in recent Oxford history, a player I think you can compare Shemi to is Yannick Wilshere. The only difference is that, like you say, that Shemi can score a banger, because I think
Mm.
without that, he's similar to Yannick, and Yannick had pure pace, had the skill, but was so frustrating to watch.
Mm.
So, because I was just going back through all the other wingers, I'm like, well, Murphy and Marcus Brown, I always thought, obviously, Josh Murphy had those, that 6 months towards the back end of his Oxford United career where he was unstoppable. Maybe you could compare Shemi to Murphy in the 18 months before that. I was just kind of going back through wings in my head thinking who's the most similar to
Yeah,
Shemi that we've had before. And like I say, unlike Yannick Wilshere, Shemi can actually score a banger from time to time. Um,
yeah.
let's go on
So
and
am I
have
right
a
in saying
go on.
I'm sorry, no, sorry, no, go on, Sam. I was just gonna, my point was going to lead us to know. I was going to ask how many goals Wilshere scored
Go
for us. I
on.
think it was only one.
I
I
think
think
it
it was the
was
one
just one
against
goal.
Ipswich.
Yeah,
Yeah, is that the game that we couldn't see because of the fog?
I
I
think it
think I'm
might
right
have
in
been.
saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah. So at
the
least Placheta's got something in his locker, at least.
yeah the only like the only for some reason the one memory that sticks out in my head of Yannick Wilshere is um uh when he was in our promotion season, when he went to Exeter after leaving us, and I think that's the game where we beat them 3-0. And I saw him in the lineup thinking, oh god, he's going to have an absolutely an incredible performance, because I think that was in the period of the season where we'd had a couple of former Oxford players just turn it on against us, and it was just so frustrating.
Yeah. I think also I'd like to make one more point is that
Go on.
in the split second where you saw in the game when you saw the ball go to Placheta, my heart
Yeah.
did lift a little because I thought this is this is the exact game where he's going to score. And it's the sort of Gary Rowett shithouse, like 96
Yeah,
minute. We've
yeah.
been awful all game, but and of course it's going to be one of our like most frustrating players who gets the winner. So yeah, it all worked out.
To be honest, I didn't see who the ball went to. I just saw it hit the back of the net, and then when on scoreboard shimmy, I just started cackling to myself. Um,
Yeah,
let's talk about the game we've got on Tuesday and the match on Saturday. So, another game at the Kassam. We face the visit of Stoke City, who, after many years of mediocrity in the Championship, look to be making a real fist of getting back into the Premier League off the back of a 5-1 win against Bristol City. Um, Man City loanee Mbamba with a hat trick in that game. They are it's hilarious because like we said, Stoke have been mediocre for such a long time, that this season they've just found that spark and are looking really, really impressive, aren't they?
yeah, they're in good form, so it's going to be a very challenging game. But Tuesday night under the lights at the Sam Stadium are always good games, and when it's that sort of setting, you never know what's going to happen. So because of that, and I think because of the result against Millwall, and because of basically because of that, I'm feeling somewhat optimistic. I'm not going to say we're going to smash them, but for whatever reason, I just feel like we might get something out of the game. I think I sort of have the same thoughts as what Connor said last week, where he doesn't see us losing our next three games.
Hmm.
Millwall, Stoke, and then West Brom. And I'm sort of the same mind. Um, yeah, it's going to be a tough game, but these are the games that Oxford seem to do well in. And it's Tuesday night, it's at the Stand, anything can happen.
Hmm.
So I'm quietly optimistic. Logically, I know it's going to be really difficult, but quietly, I'm sort of thinking, you know what, we might be able to snatch something here.
Hmm. And then on Saturday, we make the trip to the Hawthorns before the international break to play a West Brom side who their recent form has not been good. Drew 0-0 with Sheffield Wednesday yesterday, and have got 3 losses in their last 5 games, those being 1-0 to Ipswich, 2-1 to Watford, and 3-0 loss to Millwall. Their one positive result coming with a 2-1 against Preston. They've got Charlton Athletic during the week at the Valley, so they'll be looking to really bounce back. Obviously, the quality of play we know. Price, Johnston, Elling Jr., Josh Madger, Alex Mauer, who's we all know he's probably going to score because that's what happens to us. But this is going to be another very tough game, isn't it? I thought last season against West Brom with Hawthorns we were shocking.
Yeah, I can't wait for this game. I'll be honest. It's actually my first like proper away day for a while. It's the day after my birthday. I've always wanted to. I missed out on the Hawthorns last season, so I can't wait for this game. Um, their recent form sort of gives me hope that we might pick up something, but they would also be looking at us again. I think I've said this a couple of times this season, but they will be looking at Oxford. Okay, this is a team that we can beat to get back on track.
Yeah,
and there will be a lot of pressure on them, especially from their home fans. But I can't wait for that one. I think see how it goes against Stoke, and then we'll sort of like that will give us a good, a good sort of gauge on how it's going to go against West Brom.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, 2 very tricky fixtures coming up before the international break, and of course, it's just for our sanity. It'd be nice to get 3 points against West Brom or a positive result against West Brom, so we've got that to sit on for a couple of weeks. After the international break, of course, we've got the visit of Middlesbrough, but we will preview that in the show before that. We're back with you next week for another international break special. But until then, thanks for watching, folks. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Really helps us out in the algorithms. And follow myself and Will, and of course Connor on social media. You can find that linked in the tweets, and we'll see you next week.